Okay, welcome back to round two. Pretty exciting. One of my favorite lists, Griselbrand Oath. Craig Maisley piloting it, and then we have Thomas Vandermeulen playing Rug Delver. So in his rug list, he's playing a list that actually looks really similar to the Legacy list, with a couple of tweaks. He's playing Jace the Mind Sculptor, Trigon Predator, and what else will we not see in Legacy here?
Mystical Tutor is a big one.
Right.
It's very, very powerful.
Gush.
Yeah, Gush. So this is what I expect for the unpowered decks. I think there's going to be a lot of people at Vintage Champs who are going to take their Legacy Rug deck, throw in some Gushes, and have a really good time playing it. I don't think it's the most competitive of the budget decks, but it does have the chance to get there. It at least has Force of Will, which is going to allow you to stop the opposing combo decks and other really broken plays. It's a reasonable choice. I still favor Goblins as the budget deck that I would play if I needed to. But it is a lot of fun. And when you're playing with a deck like Gush, you're really not losing out on that much by not having full power. It's not like you're tinkering or you need a ton of mana. You're playing the curve very low. And especially once you hit Jace, you're just going to be getting rid of your excess mana sources anyways in favor of more business.
Well, and Thomas actually opts to run. He did run power. He's got the Emerald, Sapphire, Ruby, and the Lotus. So just the on-color power. And he has a Scavenging Ooze, which I think is really powerful in this format because it can deal with certain decks' entire strategies like Dredge. You can just take out their Dredger, and they're not able to start generating that kind of business. And he's also got the Snapcaster Mage, which is really good in this format because he has access to Mental Misstep, Ancestral Recall, so many things that you're going to want to flashback Time Walk.
Yeah, this is a totally solid choice when you're playing it fully powered. When it's unpowered, you're going to lose out on Ancestral and Time Walk as well, aside from the acceleration. You will see a lot of this in the powered bracket as well. It is very popular, but I think you're going to see both variants, so it'll be interesting for those playing at Champs to try and figure out, did they get a round where they're not going to be facing Ancestral, or are they going to be playing against one of the more popular aggro decks, so to speak, in the format. Now on Craig's side of the board, he's playing a list that I absolutely love. I know you're a big fan of it as well. Griselbrand Oath, very powerful. I've piloted this many times. His version is using Vault Key. I've done that. I've also done the Dark Ritual build. There's lots of different builds. You've got a lot of leeway when you're drawing 7 to 14 cards the turn Griselbrand comes out.
Absolutely.
You're probably going to win off of that. If not, you've got counters, and you can just beat them down with Griselbrand, gain some more life, try again, draw 7 cards the next turn.
Yeah.
So very powerful, and a lot of fun to play. The only reason I'm not on it right now is because a lot of decks have actually adapted in order to beat this. It's such a threatening deck that people have had to distort in order to beat it, in terms of main deck Grafdigger's Cages, in terms of some decks having access to all 4 Grafdigger's Cage post board, and then cards like Abrupt Decay. They need to be able to get that Oath off of the board to make sure that you never get the Griselbrand in. One of the problems with the Grafdigger's Cage plan, though, is you are still able to Oath even with Grafdigger's Cage out. What happens is you reveal until you hit the Griselbrand. He goes on top, and then you can draw him for turn and then Show and Tell him in, which Craig does have 2 copies of Show and Tell main deck. No extras in the board, but I've seen people go up in quantity there as well. Totally reasonable line because Cage is such a popular main deck and sideboard card right now. Opening up with a turn 1 Delver. This is a dicey spot. So it's one of Tom's most powerful openers is Delver with protection and to be able to swing. Fortunately, Craig has the Orchard, so it's not actually hurting him that he played the Delver here. He's going to need to be able to stop the Oath either way.
This is so I just want to mention that these vintage tournaments is the most use of Pokemon cards I've ever seen on camera. I remember Warren Connell was using Slowpoke tokens as his 1/1 red elementals. And,
yeah, all the cool kids are doing it. There's no doubt about that.
Is that a Haunter? Ghastly?
That's Ghastly.
I forget.
Yeah, that's Ghastly.
Turns into Gengar eventually.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to give your opponent a Gengar token. I mean, that's just
it's too powerful.
That's way too much. as it eats your dreams, which is basically what's happening here. I mean, Griselbrand's going to show up and eat Tom's dreams of winning this game. There we go.
There he is. The demon with the 10 fins.
Yeah, Delver is maybe going to be able to flip and chump block. It may not even come to that, though. He's still got access to drawing 14 cards here.
Yeah.
And Tom not showing red mana, so not in danger of getting bolted out of the game either.
So Tom needs to drop Lotus, Jace, bounce Griselbrand. And I don't think that's going to happen this turn, seeing as he has a Snapcaster, a Force, a Scavenging Ooze?
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I would still rather be on Craig's side of the board, even if that happened. Because what's going to happen is he's going to oath up another Griselbrand and just draw a bunch more cards. We've got a altered, very nice altar for Delver. Mario taking to the skies, and it's not going to matter.
Doesn't matter.
We got it on camera. Next game. That was I think that was what was happening there. Let's show the world some really nice altars and move on. That Griselbrand, just too much for a board of Delver of Secrets, and a counterspell not really going to help after the fact. It really would have been nice to have that to stop the first turn oath. Now post board, we're looking at, of course, the Grafdigger's Cage, loading up on those. He's got Nature's Claim as well to get rid of the oath. Some extra counters. A card like Lightning Bolt it's tough because on the one hand you need your range, you need to be able to finish games, but you also really don't have any utility out of it. It's basically a lava spike.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at the card as would I leave in lava spike, then you start to board it out a lot more effectively. Sometimes you'll leave some of them in, but you're not going to win by getting rid of your tokens, and that would be one of those things like if you had a Jace and you were trying to fate seal them and they give you tokens and they have an oath, like that's such a corner case where you're able to delay the Griselbrand from entering the battlefield by getting rid of your creatures. It's just not worth it. So that card is a pretty easy cut. Everything else in the deck is pretty well positioned here. Steel Sabotage is going to come out almost certainly, even though it can stop Time Vault Key. It's just not where you want to be. There's very little cards that it actually interacts with.
Yeah, Fire Ice could maybe come in if he wants to go real deep and maybe just tap a Griselbrand for a turn and get in a lethal swing, but I don't think that's going to be strong enough in this matchup.
Yeah, that's really kind of playing into the worst case scenario. The percentage of games that you win when Griselbrand's on the board are so small. I would think the Pithing Needle naming Griselbrand would probably be a safer play there. At least that way now it's just a lifelinker. And that's something.
Yeah, it's pretty good versus a deck that plays all X2s and X3s and a few X1s.
Yeah, that Ancient Grudge is interesting. I don't think that's going to be able to stay in. Now, if Craig didn't have Griselbrand to go along with all of these good cards, then a card like Ancient Grudge is amazing, because what happens is they assemble Vault Key, and you're able to Ancient Grudge them out of the game. Even if they have a counter, they need to have 2 counters more than you have just to make it work, and that's very rarely is that going to happen. So Ancient Grudge is really good when you don't also have to deal with Griselbrand. Problem being, even if you stop Time Vault Key, if you leave them with a Griselbrand, you're still done. So yeah, I'd say a lot of those type of cards are going to be making their way out in favor of cards that will stop Griselbrand from ever entering the battlefield.
Yep.
And Trigon Predator also very, very good. Once that hits, Craig can't just run out a single oath. At that point, he either has to have double oath or oath time walk. So we'll see what he's able to do with it. Now on Craig's side of the board, he's got a bunch of graveyard hate, totally reasonable, Ley Lines, Nile Spellbomb, Ravenous Trap. So he's prepared for Dredge, which is good to see. I definitely recommend, even though we haven't seen a lot of Dredge at the Scholars tournaments, what I really like to see is people play what I'd call an honest sideboard.
Right.
Because if you don't have a deck prepared the way you would for a larger event, your testing is totally worthless. Could you improve your matchup versus the other blue decks by running extra red blasts instead, for example? Sure. But what does that really teach you? Nothing. Because now you're going to go play in a big tournament, and now your sideboard plan isn't what it was. So if the matchups that you thought were favorable because you were bringing in all of these extra cards, now you don't have access to them. So you're really not refining your game. You're not really learning which cards are must counters and which ones aren't, because you're just distorting everything by not having an honest sideboard and not being prepared for dredge and shops. And they're going to be there. If you're going to win, you're going to have to be prepared for both of those lists, and they are going to eat up a lot of your sideboard. That's just the way it is. And I am not a fan of trying to skirt around that and being like, oh, well, maybe I'll dodge dredge. It's just not a reasonable plan.
No.
And it's actually a deck that I think will be overrepresented at Vintage Champs because it's so cheap to build and have it be really good. Instead of needing full power, you're really just looking at your bazaars. Opening up with the first turn, altered Grafdigger's Cage. That's going to do a lot versus Craig.
Mm-hmm. Now, altars, in my opinion, are like tattoos. If you pay a lot of, you get what you pay for, pretty much. I've seen people get really cheap altars, and I don't really think that's worth it. But the ones that are really awesome, generally, you either have to know someone who's extremely talented, or you got to shell out the cash.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of beautiful altars we've captured on camera, and almost all of them are done by professionals.
Mm-hmm. This is one of the cool ones. It's a classic extended border, and I think from here, this one looks like it was done really well.
Scavenging Ooze. So we've got Disruption and a Clock. This is about as much as Tom could hope for. Mm-hmm. Scavenging Ooze is actually quite strong versus Craigslist, because if he does Oath, he could put key parts into the graveyard, which would then allow him to potentially break things up. Misstep. So good. Love the card.
Craig's thinking about forcing back.
Yeah, he may need to here. He's under serious clock.
So he's probably looking for a mana source, because we know he has the Oath in his hand. So he's going to tutor up some sort of land, or maybe a Mox.
Yeah,
probably a land.
The land or the Lotus are certainly options. Lotus would allow you to do double Oath. I think he did have double Oath, right?
Yeah, he did have double Oath.
So that would be a possibility. He's also considering Ancestral here to try and draw into the mana source. He may realize that just drawing a mana source isn't going to be enough, because not only does he have to contend with Grafdigger's Cage, he's still got the Clock to face down as well. So
right,
doesn't have a lot of time to dirtle around. We'll see where this goes. Did he go with the Ancestral?
Opted for the Underground.
Oh, he has the land. I thought he grabbed the Ancestral. Let's see here. No?
Nope.
Alright, so he just grabbed an Underground.
Maybe he has a Show and Tell in hand? No, but then he would still need another mana source, so.
Let's see where this goes. Very interesting. This could be a very fast game in either direction. Coming across for 4. Highly unlikely that any creatures will end up in the graveyard.
Another Delver, or a Delver this turn, and a Pithing Needle, gonna name the Griselbrand most likely.
Yeah, that's definitely the play here. So we've got some Artifact Hate on Tom's side of the board. Cheap Artifact Hate, able to stop the... Ooh, Abrupt Decay.
Abrupt Decay on the cage with the trigger. Yeah.
Oh no!
There you go.
Oh no!
That's how that goes.
That's just brutal.
Abrupt Decay being uncounterable is just so key. Card is so strong.
Theros Thoughtseize in there, alongside Black Bordered Demonic. Some people prefer the new art. It's interesting to see. Anytime they reprint a card like that, it tends to be a little polarizing. Some people love the new art. Some people really prefer the original art. All right, so that board is quite messy.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can clear this up without getting any extra mana sources in play.
Right. Yeah, so I had all these lands in play.
Luckily, not too difficult to keep track of.
Right.
Just the Underground and the Forbidden Orchard and the Oath, but that's all it takes.
And he gets to choose graveyard order, so it doesn't matter that he's just sort of like throwing it all in there.
Yep. Yeah, Griselbrand is
definitely
here, and he actually can draw 7 if he wishes.
Definitely stronger than anything.
Oh no, he can't, sorry, because of the Pithing Needle.
He's still a 7/7 flying lifelink, which is going to outclass anything Tom's going to do.
Yeah, It's what I was trying to highlight earlier, is just how dangerous Griselbrand is on his own. As a 7/7 versus all of the different type of budget decks, he's a real problem. Now, the only way that Tom could really get past him would be with timely removal. So, for example, if he could block Griselbrand and then remove his creature, he can prevent the lifelink from happening. But
That's true.
Highly unlikely that he has the bolts in there. Oh no, misdirection on that Ancestral. Oh man, that is just having what you need right there. He has the Abrupt Decay for the Grafdigger's Cage and the misdirection to snag that Ancestral. That is hugely punishing.
So Thomas ends up being down a card, and Chris ends up being up one card off that trade. So what is that? Is that a 2-for-1, or is that a, what do you call that?
I mean, I've seen people quit Magic over that type of thing. I mean, that's a huge swing. Probably this is looking like it's pretty much over. I'll go into anecdote mode here. Back in the day, the Gush mirrors were often decided by misdirection on Ancestral, and at one point I was playing against a player who I had probably every week for the last month snagged his Ancestrals with my misdirections, and he finally, I run out a Ancestral, he misdirects, and then I end up responding. He Ancestrals, I Ancestral, he misdirects, and then I misdirect his misdirection to his own Ancestral. So at that point, he has to change the target to me.
Oh wow!
So I drew 6 there. He actually quit. He actually quit the game. That was a total blowout.
Yeah.
Yeah. That back in the day, you used to be able to gush and then play balance after with no lands and no creatures in play. That was really good versus all the fair decks. And then you just like have mana floating and play a werebear.
Yeah.
Those were the crazy days of Vintage.
Quarian Dryad.
Yeah.
Winter Orb. I dabbled back in those days. I started off playing Vintage, and then it evolved into Legacy.
Yeah, I really like both formats a lot right now. I do miss the brainstorms. That's the biggest factor for Legacy to me. If they put 4 Gushes in Legacy or 4 Brainstorm in Vintage, not close. They would easily be my favorite formats. As it is now, I definitely have a soft spot for Vintage. More so than
oh wow,
reasonable.
Getting rid of that Ancestral in
Such
response
utility.
to Snapcaster.
I actually really like Memory's Journey. That's a card I've had a lot of success with when I was playing Oath. There's just so many plays you can make with it. I'm a big fan of that. You're shuffling in not only Ancestral, but some bad cards as well, making it so he's got some bad draws. So versus Snapcaster Mages, they've been huge. I've done a ton versus the top deck tutor, so people like Vampiric Tutor for the win. And you're like, hey, do you have 2 extra counters? Because we're about to shuffle. You're probably not going to draw what you just vamped for. Very, very good. Those type of cards, when you can find the extra utility, they're just amazing. And of course, the reason it's in there is in case you oath down so low, you don't lose to your own deck. But yeah, when you can get that extra value out of it, just amazing. And it's blue.
Yeah.
It's a card that I literally would never board out when I'm playing Oath. It's just too important.
So Craig is gaining 7 and Tom's dealing 7. Not where you want to be.
Yeah, this is just a Griselbrand beatdown. It's what he does. Worst case scenario.
Do those spirit tokens fly?
No, they're grounded.
Okay.
The Delver is going to be able to hang back and give him a chance, but we've got a 4 mana play of Jace, resetting Delver, no chance of blocking. Yeah, that's pretty brutal. I think the thought process from Craig there was bouncing Delver is going to allow him to make sure that Jace sticks around.
Let's him look at the graveyard. What could you have left? Oh, he's thinking about if there's anything he can remove with the Scavenging Ooze on his end step. Maybe.
Yeah, there's not going to be any creatures in there, but he can certainly I think he's just worried about what potential plays could happen next turn.
Memories journeying something back in that's relevant. Which is exactly what's happening. Is it going to be ancestral? No. Is that even important anymore?
Time Walk is good. Yogg-Will is obviously going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Force is really necessary.
Yeah, ancestral would probably be better, but he's probably worried that, he's going to go through his whole deck pretty soon. Was he shuffling, like 15 cards right now?
It's not a lot of cards. Yeah, you want all of them to be live ones.
Mhm.
That would be the ideal situation. So yeah, the Memories Journey happens before the green mana comes back online for Scavenging Ooze. Not really going to matter here. I mean, Tom attacking Jace is not really ideal. Yeah, this is a very interesting spot. I probably would have, instead of bouncing with Jace, I probably would have shuffled back in some real live ones.
Yeah.
And then tried to draw into them. Like, 'cause if he draws into like Lotus Time Walk with Jace, he just wins. So
13 cards, I think. So Thomas playing a Vendilion Click, which
blocks flyers.
And he's able to crack for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which nets him 1 damage. Yeah, this is gonna be a tough climb right here.
Yeah, the lifelink is just too much. So
he's clicking himself, putting Delver on the bottom, giving him a chance to draw an out.
Yeah, I mean he realistically he needs Time Walk and some guys. Does he have the full damage on board?
He has 8 damage on board.
Time Walk would get there because he's got the 11 damage overall.
Okay.
So Time Walk would have been good.
Oh, he's killing Jace.
Yeah, this is. So we're looking at blocking, and
so
then
take damage here, which he didn't. It's funny. Everybody uses odds for damage.
You got to play the odds.
Yeah.
Oh, Abrupt Decay. You're an all-star. That's just 2 back-breaking plays in a row. 1 to get Griselbrand into play. 1 to just straight up win the game. That card is just so good. So good. After watching a match like that, that actually makes me feel a lot better about Oath in terms of how good Abrupt Decay is at the problem cards.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty brutal.
And it just deals with everything that matters.
Yeah, that's really brutal. That's a strong contender for anybody looking to play at Vintage Champs this weekend. This is a real deck. I mean, I was on the Nature's Claim before, back when I was playing it. That was before Abrupt Decay was really a card. Mm-hmm. And seeing what that card does, I mean, it certainly doesn't get countered by Misstep, which was the type of problem that I was concerned about.
Yeah.
So that's just a straight up trump card to what they're trying to stop you. Very, very informative match. Glad I got to see that. That changed my perception a little bit about exactly how good Griselbrand Oath is right now when you're trying to stop it with Grafdigger's Cage instead of a bunch of counter spells.
Right. Well, that was a pretty cool round 2, and we'll meet you back here, same time, same place for round 3.